Neat fight coming up on short notice this weekend. We have the UFC debut for a couple of fighters in honor of Nikolas Motta taking on Lebanon, Indiana's Cameron Vancamp. And for Cameron Vancamp, it's kind of like he's a flying Wallenda. He's not the only brother that's a fighter. He has two other brothers that are pro MMA fighters. He's a guy that kind of picked up the trade when he was in his senior year of high school, and he hasn't looked back. A total record of 15-5-1, and some fights against some guys that you would recognize. A loss on his record, Austin Hubbard. He fought Bobby Volker at one point in 2019. How crazy is that? He beat Matt, I mean, who can we pick out that's a really impactful win on here? Dan Stitkin, that people might recognize. He beat Quentin Parks Jr. twice. He has a no contest on his record against Thomas Gifford, and he ended up losing by submission in the first minute. But Gifford, gonna Gifford, and it ended up as a no contest at the end of the day. But for Cameron Vancamp, he's a guy that switches things up on the feet. He'll start out orthodox. He'll switch over southpaw, throw a couple jabs out there, go back over to orthodox. But really what he does very well in his fights, he's just so tricky to try and figure out whether he's working in his grappling, whether he's working a flying knee to end up into the clinch to get you down and then submit you. Like, he can get it done in a lot of different ways. In this fight, though, he's going to be taking on a Nikolas Motta that's one of the more dynamic strikers that you're going to find outside of the UFC. This is a former CFFC champ. He earned a shot in the UFC with a win in 2020 on Contender Series over Joseph Lowry. He was booked to take on Damir Hadzovic earlier on this year. He got hurt. He was supposed to take on Jim Miller this weekend. Miller dealing with some COVID complications. So ultimately we get this fight. But if you know Nikolas Motta, there's a reason why he was booked against those high-value names. His losses on his record, Robert Hale, Antonio Carlos Ribeiro. He lost to Gleico França on, The Ultimate Fighter Brazil Season 4. Got finished in that fight, but França would end up winning the season. And then before that, or in the middle of all of this, he knocked out Joe Selecki in 2018. That's a pretty big win. I think that's why you'd see Motta matched up with a Hadzovic that's been in the UFC for a long time, who ended up fighting a really tricky out in, who was it? No longer in the UFC, Nancy Medeiros. Or against a guy like Jim Miller that has that big-time name value. That was a big stepping stone for Joe Selecki. Would have been an opportunity for Motta. Now Motta draws Vancamp, who's got to try and make the weight on really short notice too. His last fight for Vancamp, that is, in 2021, back in July, he fought at welterweight against Kenny Gaudreau, finished him in the first round. Before that, he fought Haraz Sayan. That was at 170 pounds, but his opponent, Sayan, was not 170 pounder. He was a little guy. So this is going to be tricky. Vancamp has a lot in terms of reach and height in this fight. So what do you say here?
Cameron Vancamp reminds me a little bit of Kevin Lee. And I understand Kevin Lee might go for a lot more takedowns, but their games are somewhat similar. And hear me out. They both do switch stances, like you had mentioned, but Cameron Vancamp has a very, signature trait that I don't like. When he switches stances, he's kind of hittable when he does it. And he's not one of these fighters who knows his own skill set to the level that I'd like. Like, Cameron Vancamp to me strikes a little bit too much, honestly. I would like to see him go more just hardcore, like, I'm going for more takedowns now. Because when you watch his fights and when he does have his most successes, when he is mixing in the takedown with his striking, when he's keeping his opponent guessing is when he is at his best. And it's interesting. Cameron Vancamp switches his stances based on his opponent's stance to make his single leg takedowns easier. If you are standing at him orthodox, then he will match you, I guess it would be southpaw, so that his right hand is closer down to your leg. It's just, those are those like weird veteran things that you don't normally see from fighters making their UFC debuts, but just something I picked up on, something that I thought was kind of cool. Nikolas Motta has legit striking though in both hands, and I don't just want to say that he has good power in both hands. That power translates to his kicks too, and he is somebody who will finish his combinations with kicks. He's not at like Oscar Pereira level of it, where it's like, oh, you do this every single time and you don't have another trick, but he does really like to incorporate his kicks into his striking game, and this should be a really interesting fight, because I could see Motta having two different versions of his UFC career. I could see him having like a Lando Venata type start to where it's, you get this highlight reel knockout, then we throw you into the deep end of the pool, and you have a fun career, but maybe you don't ever reach the heights that were once attached to you. Or Motta could go out there, have tough competitive fights, and actually develop into a really top tier talent one day. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case either.
For the guy, Cameron Vancamp, his last time out at 155 pounds was back in, April of 2018 against Thomas Gifford, where he got submitted in the first round. For Nikolas Motta, again, former CFFC champ. It should be said, too, for Cameron Vancamp. I made the joke about his brothers are MMA fighters, and that's cool. His last 4 fights with different organizations: B2 Fighting Series, SHP, Chosen Few, United Combat League. He won a belt for 4 different organizations before making the switch to the UFC. They needed a guy on short notice. They got him. No odds for this one just yet. We'll go over to Topology. I haven't looked at the votes. Let's actually look at the odds for Motta and Jim Miller. They were pretty much at par. So that's how much credit you get for Motta. Over on Topology, limited sample size, 359 total votes, 76% with Motta, 72% by decision. For the 24% that have Vancamp, 44% have him to win by submission. Both guys get finished. If they're going to lose, both guys will get finished. So there is that opportunity out there for either guy. But out of all the tape I watched for Vancamp, when he switches southpaw, he gets hit. And he doesn't land a lot, and he kind of stands still a little bit.
Just like Kevin Lee?
So I do worry about him in this one. I think Nikolas Motta is going to get the win. I worry about the draining weight cut, too, on such short notice for Vancamp. I get it. He's in fight-ready shape. He looks great on the Instagrams, the Facebooks, and so on and so forth. I think Motta is going to win this fight. I would be surprised if Vancamp did, but I think it'd be cool if he did because, again, he has those weird paths to victory. The flying knees into a takedown. The takedown from distance. That's the other thing, too. He'll, crash forward for some of his takedowns. He'll go high crotch single leg and try and drag you down. They're very forceful moves. They're very appealing to watch. And you can find a lot of his tape online, too. Like the SHP fight, the B2 fighting, and a lot more of them. So it's really easy to find tape on Cameron Vancamp. Same can be said for Motta if you have a Fight Pass subscription, which you do. Yeah. I do. So you can find him there. But yeah, I like Nikolas Motta in this fight a whole lot.
So do I, and I honestly think Motta can go on and have a pretty fun UFC career. He has a very fan-friendly style, and I do think if he is able to get a big win like this, who was Uros Medic? He hasn't fought since, but remember when no one knew who he was? Then he had that great fight against Alon Cruz, knocks him out quick, and then everybody knew who he was afterwards. I could kind of see Motta having a performance similar to that one.
All right, both of us going with Brazil's Nikolas Motta in this one. Let us know down below in the comments section who you have. Are we crazy? Do you think Vancamp's going to go out there and prove us wrong and shock the world? Or do you have Nikolas Motta in this one? You let us know. Big time fights up at the top, main and co-main. Iwan Kutsalaba taking on Devin Clark. In the main event, you have Anthony Smith taking on a really tough out in Ryan Spann. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.